Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of that show that will not be named. I am your host, Brian, or the Game Prince, whatever you prefer. And today,
We're going to be delving right into this book I just wrote.
I feel like I spit on that last one. Okay, redo.
And marker.
Anyways, hello everyone. Today I wanted to talk about pretty much about my book. You remember the one I mentioned in the last video? The one that I said I wasn't going to, hey guys, you should really buy this. Well, I figured I would read a couple stories. Not stories. It's not stories. It's a fucking poetry collection, you dumb shit. Read a couple pieces of poetry out of here. See what you think. Wait. Where's the jazz? It's light. It's alright. It'll do. Anyways, let's jump right in, Shall we? And let me do that thing. Let me do that thing that poets do where they're like, now let me read a work of mine. Let me try to prove that all of my work is worth reading. Meanwhile, they flick through and they go, ooh, Jesus, no, not that one. And believe me, I've seen those poets up on stage at the colleges and shit. They're like, yeah, let me read my work now.
So you're just going to read the whole book?
God, no, child. I'm going to read the best ones. The rest you could fuck off and read for yourself. Anyways, I'm going to read my favorite poem. I probably read it before on this channel. I don't know. I can't remember anything that I did on this channel. Mainly because I was drunk for 90% of it. But anyways, I'm going to read you this little poem that I wrote. It's number 24. Because I number all of my poems. Because at the end of my life, I would like a record of every single poem I wrote. And what better way to record everything than by numbering them in each book. I have another book I'm working on too, but I'll get into that at a later time. But basically, in each of my poetry collections, I'm having a total of 110 poems in each one. So when I get up to 1,000, it'll be about, I don't know, I'm not good at math. Anyways, let's jump right into this poem. This is one of my favorite poems. It's called Cool Kid. So I'm just going to tell you the poem, and then I'm going to tell you about what it means afterwards. Cool kid. Relax. It's short. Jeez. I saw you bitching in the back there. Alright, cool kid. By Brian Charles Alexander. I sit in the back of the class with a cigarette in my mouth. Too scared to light it, but not too scared to show it off. Oh, the deep poetic excess that came spilling from these pages. Did you not feel it? Because I sure didn't. Yeah, this poem, Cool Kid, was written by me while I was sitting on the toilet because I thought about how a lot of people say and don't do. So the whole point of the cool kid in the poem is that he'll sit in the back of the class and he'll put the cigarette in his mouth, but he won't light it for fear that if he lights it, he's crossing a certain line and he could actually get in trouble. So it's about people that tempt the lion or tempt, society and keep poking at shit. But then the second something starts to go a little awry or there's an actual threat or fear of threat, they back up and they're like, okay, yeah, I won't do that. So I guess in layman terms, it's a poem about cowardice, I suppose. Cool kid. But that was always one of my favorite ones. I showed that to a couple people, and they always found that to be their favorite. Corpse and dandelions. Revenge. I love this poem, Revenge. You might like this too. Revenge. And I would explain what it is beforehand, but the poem's kind of self-explanatory. After the Civil War had been won, there was a Southern general who stood up on a mound somewhere and shouted north to the heavens. And this is what he said. Damn you, brothers. In time, the souls of your Southern brethren will have their revenge. For come the next 1,000 years, we will lure your kind here, and once on our soil, we will ensure they perish here, either in their sleep or under the bluest sky. They will be attracted by leisurely afternoons in peaceful communities. We will invite them in with southern cuisine, juices that allow them to shit easily in their advanced age, and quiet retirement homes. Here, they will be pampered until fate sees it fit to take them away. Casualties on southern soil forevermore. In this way, our children will take the lives of your descendants on sunny days, on golf courses, and afternoons playing shuffleboard or bingo. And in this way, the South will have its revenge. Yeah, that's probably what the general said. That poem is basically about how Florida and just the South in general, because old people really like North Carolina. It's basically how old people from the North constantly find their way down to the South, and they eventually end up in Florida, or, like I said, Carolina or something like that, and they pretty much just end up retiring there, and then they die there. So, in the context of the poem, obviously it's supposed to be like, oh, it's the decree of a general. It's like the spiritual vengeance of the South since they lost the Civil War. That more Northerners in their old age during retirement will die, perish, or pass on Southern soil than there were Southerners who died in the war. So, it's supposed to be like a comedic, dumb revenge poem. This next one, I do want to read this one, but then again, I also don't want to come off as a sappy fuck. And we'll do it anyways. Once I get my footing. Okay, are you ready? Might actually need to put my glasses on for this one. I'm finding it a bit hard to read. And my glasses are foggy. Fucking great. Okay, this next one is called Beside Me. It's number 36 in the book. Picnic by Brian Charles Alexander. Anyways, beside me. She lies beside me. A beauty in wife's clothing. In all the ways I could count my love for her, I can also count the ways I could get on without her. Still, I want her here beside me, to hold me just before we drift off, and to squint lovingly at me when we wake. That way I can look into her eyes as she assures me with a gaze that I'm still here. That one's basically about if you have a lover, that being with someone and having a companion is another way of assuring yourself that you're alive, that you're, actually living. And I like that. I wrote that actually while I was laying next to my girlfriend after we woke up from a very long nap. So I'm going backwards in this book. The next one I'm going to read is Figaro, poem number 35, in a book called Beatnik by Brian Charles Alexander. Anyways, Figaro. This one is about, I don't know what this one's about. I actually forgot. Most of these I forgot that I wrote, to be honest. Like, writing most of the poems was in the days. It was always in the moment. I always write the poems in the moment. I never start a poem, leave it alone, and then come back to it later. Like, I'll be at work and I'll have to go to the shitter and I'll just be like, I have to finish this poem. And I won't go back until it's done. I refuse to walk away from a poem. I cannot do it. It is impossible. If you ask me to do it, the idea is going to be lost and I'm never going to get it back. I can't tell you how many poems I have lost because I'm like, okay, I got this great line. Let's put it on pause because I have this thing I have to do. Every poem I've done that with, I've lost. And they were good ones too. And I know they were good ones and I've lost every fucking one of them. So I'm going to stop doing that. Anytime an idea or poem comes to me, I am taking it. I am not taking any chances. So, having said that, this next poem's called Figaro. There is more than one way to skin a cat. However, As I do not practice animal cruelty, I find myself unable to go about most problems in more than one way. Again, another short one. This one, Figaro, is basically about there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's usually more than one way to do something. And it's basically pointing out my fault that either through stubbornness or through sheer ignorance, I'm very limited on the ways I'll do things. I won't really, if someone offers me an easier way to do something, either because of ignorance or just because of personal experience, I won't do it. I will stick to the way that I know how to do it. And I suppose it's really a poem, Figaro's a poem for all those people who refuse to listen or lend an ear when people say, hey, there's this easier way you could do something. Figaro's just kind of that poem for that person that's like, no, I don't like it that way. I don't like doing it that way. We all know someone like that. Ma, I bought you a computer. I don't know how to use those. Take it back to the store. Get me a new breakfast nook. I don't know. This next one is called What a Sunday. Oh yeah, this one talks about some subject that irks me. It's called What a Sunday. And funny enough, I wrote this on a Sunday. Or did I write it on a Wednesday? One of the two. I don't know. Anyways, this is number 34 in, that book I keep mentioning. Painted by Rant. 34. What a Sunday. I don't know what to write about today. I told the man my aunt had died to get out of 8 hours spent behind an emotionless desk. After that, I ran to the store and bought a sandwich with no cheese because I fear the hardening of my arteries. Now I lie between the choices of drinking heavily, masturbating, or both in the vacant house that's been left to me for the day. Even in all this silence, I cannot seem to find peace as the endless possibilities keep me from taking any real action. Perhaps I am my own worst problem. True story. That was written on a day in which I killed off my 57th family member to get out of work. I'm a mass murderer. You didn't know that? I've killed off so many fake family members. I should be locked up. And yeah, it's basically I'm sitting at home and I'm like, do I write a poem? Do I go out for a walk? Do I sit inside and jerk off all day? I don't know what to do. You know how it is. So how many poems was that? Was that about 4 or 5? Ooh, this one's alright. This one was based on something that happened to me. Long story short, I used to have a hand issue. I used to have skin problems on my hand. It used to be all right here. I used to screw up my hands. Basically, I had this thing, weeping eczema, this really bad types of eczema, and it was all infected and shit. It used to grow bubbles and pus and really nasty shit. And basically my hand looked like Freddy Krueger. And this person that I went to, one of these doctors, did a biopsy, and in order to do it, they had to cut off a piece of my hand about right here. I think it was right here-ish. I still feel the sting whenever someone touches it. But she had to cut this piece of me off, and I had to lay down on this thing, and there was a towel all over me, and I had to put my hand on my chest, and she stuck my hand with a needle, and then she had to cut off a piece. She's like, don't look at your hand. I'm like, what are you talking about? I live for this shit. I want to look at my hand. I think that shit's interesting. I'd like to see you cut me open, and it won't hurt. Fuck yeah. I mean, I've never fainted. I've accidentally gashed myself open before. Shit happens. I wouldn't faint because of something like that. And if you open heart surgery, you crack my ribs open like a lobster, I'd probably start freaking the fuck out. But a little cut, a little slice up on my hand, I don't give a shit. But yet, still, she numbed me and refused to let me watch them cut my hand open. So they took a piece of my hand and I had stitches right here for I don't know how long. The stitches were fine. They were going to dissolve on their own over time. It was pretty cool. They were clear, but I couldn't do much of anything. I couldn't make a fist because if I made a fist, it would pull on them, and it really kind of hurt. So I waited for my hand to heal, and they eventually dissolved, and it actually healed pretty well. I remember about a year ago. Yeah, that healed pretty nicely. About a year ago, I still couldn't recognize. I mean, I could see where it was. Now I can't. But I basically wrote a short story following the feeling of how weird it was to have stitches like holding my skin together. So this is a little poem about that. It's called "Crying is Not an Emergency." The stitches lie under the pinky knuckle. I'm afraid to tear them when my fingers move like spider legs. Still, I can bathe and make a fist and look tough. But no matter what, I feel the stitches pull. My flesh, which is open and closed, will take 9 days to heal, or so I was told. I wish that 10th day was today, just so I could stop feeling like Frankenstein. Again, very straightforward poem. Ooh, this next one's one of my favorite ones. It's so weird being that dude who's like going through like... 'Cause me personally, when I am reading one of my books, I'm like a person who just picked it up. I'll be looking through and I'm like, oh, that's shit. And then I'll go to one, I'll be like, that's a good poem, I like that. So I figure I'm like my own best critic. Yeah, this is a poem that I really liked. This one summed up my feelings of growing up. I'm so tired. What time is it? 9 o'clock at night. I'm probably going to go to bed in a little bit. Right after this poem. This one is called... no, it's not called Burp. This poem is called Far and In Between. When they saw me smoke my first cigarette, they hollered and said I was too young to be doing that sort of thing. When I worked part-time, they said I was old enough to get a full-time job and hollered again. When I got that job, I met this girl and I had sex for the first time. When they found out, they hollered once more and said I was too young for that sort of thing. When she left me and I cried for weeks, and they told me to get over it, as I was old enough to get over loss. Is that correct? When she left me and I cried for weeks, and they told me to get over it as I was old enough. When she left me and I cried for weeks, they told me to... I think I have an unnecessary and in there. Look at that, my first typo. Well, it's not really a typo. I guess it's a typo. I don't know. I'll make additions of these later on. So yes. When she left me, I cried for weeks, and they told me to get over. They told me to get over it, and I was old enough. Okay. I wonder how I'm able to advance and revert my age when their reasoning calls for it. I'm sure you could basically get the gist of that poem. It's that, your parents will say you're too late to stay out, but you're not too late to, take the trash out, or, bullshit like that. Basically, the thing is, I hate people that will change logic or reasoning in order to fit their argument or in order to fit their debate. That pisses me off. It just shows that they're full of shit and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I don't like being bullshitted in, conversations. If something's going to be one way, then it's got to be that way. Don't fucking change your stance the second you want to throw, some type of different logic my way. I always hate when people do that. When someone will say, the famous one that your parents always told you where it's like, oh, it's like, well, can I go over Jimmy's house? Tom is. And then and then your parents are like, don't compare yourself to other people. Would you do it if they did it? And then you get older and then all of a sudden, you're always hearing, well, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. I'm like, I'm sorry, like, a few years ago, weren't you saying not to compare me to other people? Then other people enjoy comparing you to other people. The same people that compare you to other people a few years before told you not to compare yourself to other people. So you see, It's only when they're trying to prove a point that kind of logic is correct, which is fucking horseshit. If that's the case, there's no point talking to them. There's no point talking to that kind of person. So, yeah, these are some of the shorter poems from Beatnik. I didn't really want to chew your guys' ear off, but I got some good ones. Dead Man's Clothes, which is about how my first ever ex, one of my favorite shirts, is actually her deceased brother's that was given to me. I actually still wear it. It's a good shirt. Men Are Simple Creatures. Not So Bad After All. Moving Out, Off Day. Soon to Nothing, What Is Me. The Talk Down. It's great. I like the titles of my poems. I really like them. I think they're pretty decent. What's this? Exit. Today is nicer than usual. I don't trust it. All it means is that there's a darker hour on the rise. I know, I shouldn't think that way, but the world's given me no other choice. Yeah, these are some of my shorter ones as we get to the back. The longer poems usually I put in the front because those are, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should do it the opposite ways to draw people in. Then again, I figure if I'm just, if I just open up and be myself, people will respect me for being myself. Yeah. Sure. Lo and behold. No, that's actually just lo behold. I put in the hours, but I don't feel fulfilled. I bent to the clock, but the time passed a ways. I smiled in the face of, oh my god, there's a gnat in here. Oh my god. I know you didn't come here for the poetry, so get the fuck out. Sheesh. Insects, am I right? I bent to the clock, but time passed away. I smiled in the face of that impatient... Oh no. I really can't read. I do need my glasses. My bad. We're going to start that poem all over again because I couldn't see shit. Lo behold, number 87. I put in the hours, but I don't feel fulfilled. I bent to the clock, but the time passed anyways. Yeah, that is correct. Awesome. I smiled in the face of the impatient and only got a black eye. But for all the wasted time, it's only the sun I miss, as well as every moment I missed it on its best days. Man, I read that really brokenly. I mean, I think it's way better if you read these poems more in like a casual type voice. Oof. Uh-oh. Just passed a political poem. Gotta be careful of those, bud. I liked this one. I wrote this one while walking down the side of a highway. I mean, I wrote most of these while walking down the side of a highway. The other 2% I wrote drunk. The other 3% I wrote in the middle of an anxiety attack. This was one of my favorite poems. I couldn't wait to get this one out. It's called I Am a Chair. I am a chair. Come sit on me. Carve your initials into my arms with a knife. I am a chair. Come sit on me. Dress me up or let me wear. Put me where you like. It isn't like I've got to say. I am a chair. Come sit on me. Weigh down my legs until they snap, then throw me away. I am a chair. Come sit on me. It's basically how people treat other people like chairs. Like I said, not a lot of deep stuff here. Most of my things you could kind of pick up on very easily. You know why? Because I never understood the point of writers who like to be, or poets who like to be so incredibly vague with their work. And, you go into fucking English class and the teacher's like, the door is blue. Why is it blue? Like, because it's a blue door. What do you want from the guy? Jesus, like, take a breath. sometimes, you know, if that's got to be a quote I get out, if that's got to be a quote I'm famous for, this is the quote I wish I was famous for. Poetry doesn't always have to be that complicated. It doesn't always have to be that deep, you know. I mean, fucking modern day poets literally, God save me, God help me from female writers who only write about, you know, rape and breaking up with people that are a constant struggle to be independent. Like, that's like, okay, we get it, all right. Like, it's just, it's not that it's bad poetry. No, it is that it's bad poetry. I'm just tired of the same poems. I feel like I'm reading the same poems over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I feel like they write about these same exact things. And even guys, whenever guys write poetry, it's always about their dicks, usually. There's this one guy that I read for a little while, and he was pretty funny. He had a bunch of poems. It's like, my penis this, my dick that, blah, 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 blah. And he was really funny. Until I started reading more and more and more and more and more of his stuff, and I realized, oh my god, that's all this guy writes about. There's like literally no other subject matter whatsoever. So I had to drop him. So, men who write about penises and women who write about rape and independence. Like, it's just the same thing. And then, men and women, fucking poets, constantly writing about breaking up, getting back together. I mean, you know, you go on Instagram and it's the raindrops with the red flower in the back, and it's, you loved me, I hated you. Or fucking, you know, it's always like the 2-line poem. God save me from 2-line poems. Fuck 2-line poems. So sick of that shit. Every time I go on, I'm like, there was one I read, and I had to comment on it. I had to say something. Normally I don't. I know you're not supposed to, you know, I wasn't even mean. I was just like, what the fuck is this? I was just being brutally honest. I know you're not supposed to do that kind of thing, and I know it's not nice, but sometimes you just read shit and you just have to comment on it because you cannot actually believe that it exists. And someone wrote a fucking poem. It was like 3 words. And it had, you know, the filter and everything. And I looked at it, I'm like, this is not poetry. This cannot be poetry. I'm sorry. There has to be a fucking standard. If there is no standard, then poetry is just gonna go fucking into obscurity, and it's gonna become that lost, sniveling, dumb shit thing that, you know, most people look at it as. It's just gonna go back into fucking obscurity. It's gonna be, what is it? Perfect example, but Bukowski. He said the reason that poetry has become like the laughing stock of the literary world was because it had no guts, it had no moxie, it had no flair, nothing. And I feel like that with, you know, Instagram coming out and all these people on Instagram. Now, mind you, I have an Instagram. And I'm trying my damnedest. But it's just, I notice most of the people on Instagram, all of the poetry accounts, are all these accounts that are either promoters of other people's stuff, and that's because, you know, people suck up to them because they, share my things to about 10 people, please. Or it's some kind of fucking account with a girl who's got hair covering her face, and it's not even her, it's like a stock footage of a female, and they put like, we broke up, I cried, and like, that's not a poem. That's not a poem. What are you doing? It's 2 sentences and one is like a half sentence. And then, you know, there's raindrops in the back, or it's a picture of a bridge, and they're always in black and white. You notice that? We need to stop with this. We need to stop with this Instagram poetry bullshit. You people need to write something worth. And believe me, there are. Don't be one of those people. I know you're gonna be in the comments section. You're gonna be one of those people. There's more people than that. There's more people. Blah, 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 blah. There's more people than that on. You just need to look. You need to weave through the bullshit. Yeah, but the fact that we have to weave through the bullshit in the first place is a fallacy in and of itself. We should already have access to this shit. The actual poets who are trying hard and who are out there, and they are out there because I have seen them. There are so many good poets on Instagram. We can find them, but it's the fact that you have to wean through so much schlock. That's it's horseshit. that you need to weave through 2-sentence, filter, repetitive, formulaic crap in order to get to the good stuff. I mean, it's the same in any medium. It's the same in movies, how you could either watch the formulaic horse shit or you can go to Sundance Film Festival and check out something actually worth watching. Same thing with regular books, same thing with I'm not sure if it's the same with video games. But I can't even remember what I was rambling about. Anyways, yeah, I'm so tired of the Insta poets. Because Insta poets are and I'm one of them. So I'm attacking myself. The Insta poet, whatever the word is for a conglomerate or a thing or a cluster or a fucking giant mass of cancer, just seems to be, I feel personally that it's going to have a negative impact in the future on the sanctity of poetry, or how poetry's looked at by the public. Because you go into a place that isn't a Starbucks or isn't a Barnes & Noble and you go, oh, Instagram poets, and everyone goes, or unless you're, I don't even know how literary societies view that, personally, Instagram poetry. Not sure. I'm not part of any of these communities. I'm a part of like a few groups, not like big communities, but just a few groups here and there. And mainly everyone in it's just very all about their own stuff. They don't check out anyone else's work. So, I don't know. I feel like there are dark days ahead. And that's going to do it. Thank you all for joining me, and I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.